Hello, Bioethics D-Bell. This is Nick Pruitt, and I'm doing my senior citizen interview, and this is my Nona, Antonietta Taylor. And yeah, we'll just hop straight into the interview. So now that I'm finally finishing my fourth year, my senior year at St. Xavier High School, I've experienced high school for 4 years, right? So how was your high school experience, and how do you think it was different than mine?
I walked to school. I didn't drive to school.
Mm-hmm.
And the dress code was different than how it
So
is today.
what was the dress code like?
Oh,
Did you have to wear uniforms?
no, no uniform, but
And did you go to public school?
public school. Yes. Skirts,
Mm-hmm.
blouses,
Oh,
saddle shoes.
okay. Um, what kind of music did you like to listen to
The
in high school?
50s.
The 50s. So what does that include? Who are your favorite artists from the 50s?
Oh my goodness. There were so many.
Then just name off a couple.
Many. The Four Tops.
Okay.
My goodness, I could go back. There were older singers too, like Patti Page and
Mm-hmm. Did you remember like a favorite song that you would listen to?
16 Candles,
All right.
the Platters.
I've never heard of that
I
one.
like the Platters.
Okay.
And,
What sports or hobbies did you have in high school?
I used to like to sew.
In high school?
In high school.
Okay.
I used to like to sew. And we had cooking classes and sewing classes and,
That
gym.
were at your high school?
Yes.
Okay. And was it like, did they teach you how to cook at school?
Yeah.
Was
It
that?
shows you how to, prepare,
Mm-hmm.
get everything ready, not just take one thing at a time and try to cook and all. Preparation first,
Mm-hmm.
and then you start cooking. And we would do different things. Sewing the same way, they would show you how to cut the material and lay the material down and things like that.
Okay. And was that mainly for girls or boys, that class?
I'd say girls.
Girls. Were there any boys in the class?
I can't remember.
You can't remember? Okay. And how do you think dating has changed from your high school experience to someone like my high school experience?
Well, when I was being raised, it was strict. You had to bring someone home before you were allowed to date them. You can talk to guys and girls, yeah, just like you do today.
Yeah.
The only thing was, my parents were strict.
Mm-hmm.
So if I did want to date, which I wasn't allowed to date until I was much older, and I think today you
What?
you
Like, how
date
old do you think you were when?
16, 17 probably.
Okay.
17. And so, I would have to ask the fellow to pick me up at my house and meet my parents.
Okay. And what do you think? Do you think there's anything wrong with kids dating younger now?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. What do you think?
I think there's a chance of them getting into more trouble
Okay.
instead of, not being mature enough.
So you don't think they're mature enough to make like the correct decisions? And do you think it's really dating per se when they're that young, or not really?
No, I think you can have friends and, like a first love and something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. But, to actually go on a date,
Mm-hmm.
no. I
No.
think too immature.
All right. So what do you think the main difference between high school now and high school your age was? If you had to list off one thing.
The difference between today and when I went,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's much more lenient now.
Lenient? How?
Yeah. I
Like-
think that children today can get away with a lot more than what we were allowed to get away with.
So are you talking about like school work, or are you talking about like things outside of school, or like other
No,
things that kids will get in trouble with?
yeah, I mean, I think it was even more strict in school then, I think, than today.
Than today?
Yeah, I think they're more lenient today with the children. It may be a good thing. I don't know.
Okay. So after high school or during high school, you probably got your first job, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
What was your first job?
My very, very first job that I can remember, and it didn't last long, was working at a drugstore.
At a drugstore?
Yeah, but it wasn't. It didn't last at all. Not at all. But my first job,
How long do you think you had the job?
not long at all. It was a mess.
Like a week
A
or
day.
a day? Okay.
Probably a day or two. But my first real job was working for RCA as a typist.
Okay. Do you know what RCA stands for?
Yeah, radio condenser.
Okay. Um,
Radio condenser.
and then you probably got more jobs after your first job, hopefully. What would you say is your most interesting job that you ever did?
The most interesting job
Or
I
your favorite?
ever did in my lifetime,
Mm-hmm.
or in the beginning. In the beginning, I worked for RCA.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I met my husband. And then I left, and
And how old were you guys when you met?
well, he was 26. I was 18, 19.
Oh, wow.
I was just turning 19.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what was I had asked earlier about your favorite job, possibly.
My favorite job probably was taking care of my mom, because she lived with us for 17 and a half years. And I loved her so much
Mm-hmm.
and raising my children, my family.
Okay.
But a job outside, I would say working at the hospital.
Okay. And what'd you do at the hospital?
Worked in dietary and serving food trays to the patients.
Okay. And then you had said that your favorite job was taking care of your mother and your family and everything at the house.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you think was different about like home life then versus home life now? Especially because you've been living with us a year, so you can see what a more modern family does all the time. So,
Yeah. Well, you have a lot more property. There's a lot more work of what you guys do. We lived in the suburbs.
mm-hmm.
I was born and raised in the city.
What
So
city?
Camden,
Camden.
New Jersey.
Okay. And what
And
was that like for?
I loved it. I loved it because it was a row home.
Mm-hmm.
All the neighbors knew each other. And like your first or second question was, we walked to school. So you got to know everybody, you know.
And was crime
And
as bad as it was?
I don't think so.
It
Not
wasn't.
at all. No, I could walk the street. You could sit outside till 11, 12 o'clock at night if you wanted to. I used to walk and take a bus to go to work. So I think it was, now, this is what I see, you know, that it was different.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we had to worry as much about, you know, being out on the street waiting for a bus to go to work. Or some kids took buses if they lived further away to school, you know.
But was it more rare to take a bus, would you
Yeah,
say?
very.
Very rare.
A school bus or a regular bus?
Either.
Yeah, it was different. Some children did take a bus. I'm just finding that out now, because
Oh,
most
really?
of them lived closer to the school. You know, we didn't live like a block or 2 blocks away. We lived maybe a couple miles away.
Mm-hmm. And then if you remember from before, I'd asked you about like how it was different, how family life was different at home and whatnot. And you had said that you had grown up in the city
Mm-hmm.
and that you living in the suburbs. So you want to continue from there?
In a city, like I said, you knew your neighbors because it was much closer.
Mm-hmm.
So each time you came out the door, you know, your neighbor may be sitting outside, you'd say hello and whatnot. In the suburbs, houses are separate, there's more property, so you're not quite as close. You know, it takes time to get to know your neighbors and be friendly and be closer.
And do you think we do that with our neighbors as much or not really?
Being here, I can see your mom and dad have friends, you children have friends,
Mm-hmm.
but it's different.
Mm-hmm. All right. So being that uh, you said your favorite job was taking care of your family and your
Yes,
grandma,
yeah.
what do you remember most about your children at that time?
Well, most of my children were like 5 and 6 years apart, so it was almost like having 5 years of just individual time with that child, which I enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoyed my mom, like I said, being with us because it just felt more comfortable, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because I was very close to my mom. Because our family, like my mom and dad, I had four brothers and a sister,
Mm-hmm.
but I was the youngest. They were all older, whereas mine were just 5 and 6 years apart. Whereas some of my siblings were maybe 18 years older than me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
hmm My nieces and nephews are only 4 and 5 years and more younger than me.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that's more or less common now to have children that are that far apart in age?
I think it differs.
You think it differs?
Yeah. Some are close and some aren't.
It depends on the family, you think?
Yes.
Okay. And then what do you remember about uh, mom and Aunt Zan and Uncle Bud? What do you remember most about them at that time?
I loved my children,
Mm-hmm.
as I feel most parents do. I was strict. Um, they were active, you know, in playing softball or, you know, in different things. Roseanne was in band as she got older and in high school, even in grammar school, you
Mm-hmm.
know, they were in band. Um, my son, Emerson, played the saxophone. Roseanne, I wanted her to take piano lessons. She ended up playing the drums,
Mm-hmm.
and she was very good. And your mom started out, I wanted her to play the clarinet. Well, she picked the clarinet, but then she didn't last long on that. And they were in scouts.
Uncle Bud was in Scouts, or
He was in scouts, but his dad had died when he was 9.
mm-hmm.
So I really didn't have the time to really help him like a father would to achieve his goal.
And was that hard on your family at that time?
When my husband died, it was very hard. Yeah,
What was the biggest change with not having him around?
I had to work, which I was usually at home.
Mm-hmm.
And like I've mentioned before, my mom died, and then 9 weeks later, my husband died. So I was left with, I didn't have many friends because I was really a homebody and cooking and, you know, being at home. Um, um, I'm going to go,
Where? And then where were you working at that time? Do you remember?
At that time, I took little jobs. I was taking some classes at school,
And what were you
uh,
getting classes in?
computer, which didn't go well. It was very hard after being out of school for so long
Mm-hmm.
and trying to go with kids that were in high school, because I
Mm-hmm.
was much older. I was in my 40s, early 40s. And so it was difficult, but they treated me well. And then I went to cosmetology school and earned my cosmetology license. So I did enjoy that. And that was later. That was when my children were in college.
Mm-hmm.
So it was quite different.
And how long did you work for? Do you remember when you stopped working?
You mean after
What
my
age?
husband died, or
Do you remember what age you stopped working at?
um, are you talking about when I was younger?
No, I'm talking about now.
Oh, now.
Because you've probably been working for a long time.
Not real long.
Not real
Not
long?
long, because I fell and got hurt at the hospital.
Okay.
So when I slipped because somebody didn't wipe up a spill, I ended up hurting my back and my neck.
Mm-hmm.
So then I was out of work basically after that.
And how long did it take for you to get at least most of the way better from that?
A good, I'd say a good 7 years.
And did you get like x-rays and stuff of that or?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember anything about Vietnam?
Very little, since I was very busy, but I would hear about it, when um, I know we lost a lot of young men and a lot of soldiers. Too many.
And what would you say? And would you say that's the worst part about Vietnam is that it was just a long war
It was a long war.
where people lost a lot of lives?
Yeah,
Okay. All right, that's all the questions I have for you. Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
Love you,
Thank you.
Nona.
I love you too.